Hey kids, Flexing Teacher Weber here. I hope you're having a good day. We're going to do solving equations by multiplication today. I originally was going to start with this word problem, but I think I'll pause that and we'll focus on some word problems next week. So the title of today's section is solving equations by multiplication, and I'll show you how we solve these kinds of equations. So what we have here is a division equation. X divided by 8 equals negative 2. And when we were solving an equation that had addition in it, we solved it by subtracting. When we had an equation that had subtracting in it, we solved it by adding. When we solved an equation that had multiplication in it, we solved it by dividing. So same thing with this one. When we have an equation that has division in it, we solve it by multiplying. The goal is to show the value of 1x. Now, this is x divided by 8. So to turn x divided by 8 into 1x, I will multiply this side of the equation by 8. It's important I show that multiplication up here and not down here, because that would be 8 times 8 is 64, and I'd have x over 64. What I want is to show it up here so that I get this. I get a fraction with 8 divided by 8 is 1x. And then I do the same thing to the other side, multiply by 8, and I get 1x equals negative 16. That's the same as saying x equals negative 16. To check this equation, I write down the original math equation. X over 8 equals negative 2. I substitute in my answer for x, negative 16 divided by 8 equals negative 2. I divide negative 16 divided by 8. The signs are different. So I get negative 2 equals negative 2, and we are all good. So equations that have division in them, you solve by multiplying. Sometimes the equations are reversed. This one is y divided by negative 5. And I have the 7 on the other side. I want to show the value of 1y. So I want to turn this divided by negative 5 into 1. And I do that by multiply by negative 5 up beside the variable. And then balance it by doing it to both sides. Multiply 7 by negative 5. 7 times 5 is 35. Signs are different, so it's negative. Equals negative 5 divided by negative 5 is positive 1y. Or I can just say that that's y. To check it, I write the equation. 7 equals y divided by negative 5. 7 equals negative 35 divided by negative 5. 7 equals 7. Check. Solve division equations with multiplication. Okay, a little variation here. Number 3. Negative g over 7 equals negative 9. Well, we talked about this the other day. When you have a variable with a negative sign, or any variable with no number in front of it, there's actually a number in front of it. There's a 1 there. Now, I want to turn this variable g into just a positive 1g. So I want to make divide by 7 turn into 1. I'll do that by multiply by 7, because what will happen is 7 divided by 7 will make 1. They basically cancel out. Now check this out though. I still have negative 1g. And I multiply the other side by 7, and I get negative 63. But remember, I want to show the value of positive g, not negative g. So the way I can do that, the opposite of multiply by negative 1 is divide by negative 1. And divide this side by negative 1. Negative 1 divided by negative 1 is positive 1g. And negative 63 divided by negative 1 is positive 63. That's the same as saying g equals 63. To check it, negative g over 7 equals negative 9. Replace the g with your answer 63, so that's negative 63, because the negative sign was already there, right? Over 7 equals negative 9. And 63 divided by 7 is 9. There's the negative, equals negative 9. Okay, let's check this one out. The variable's on the other side of the equal sign. I want to show the value of 1p. I want p divided by negative 5 to turn into positive 1p. So I do that by multiplying by negative 5. And do the same thing to the other side. Make sure you show the parentheses so you know that's multiply. Negative 5 times negative 6 is positive 30. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is positive 1p. And that's the same as saying p. The check. Negative 6 equals p divided by negative 5. Negative 6 equals, replace p with 30 divided by negative 5. Negative 6 equals, 30 divided by 5 is 6, and the signs are different, so it's negative. So that's one set of questions where you solve them by multiplication, but I want to look at another set. Ones that have fractions in them. Now, what we have to remember here is that fractions are the same as divide. So a half x equals 7, but it's a half, and the 2 and the half is negative. It's like negative half x. Now, really, it's the same as saying this. It's the same as saying x divided by negative 2 equals 7. So all I'm going to do to solve this is multiply both sides by negative 2. Just like I would do if it was written in this form. And multiply that by negative 2. Now what I get is I get a fraction with negative 2 and negative 2, and I can just, those divide to make positive 1. So what I'm really left with here is 1x. And then 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. Or just x equals negative 14. The check. Negative 1, it's 1 half x, but the 2 is negative, equals 7. Replace the x with negative 14. So it's like negative 14 times 1, which is negative 14 over negative 2 equals 7. And that is true, right? Negative 14 divided by negative 2 is positive 7. So when you get fraction ones, it's really just the same as dividing. Like this one here, we could say this is the same as 8 equals negative r divided by 4. Okay? Now how do you start solving this? Well, sorry, just have to fix something. There we go. How do you start solving this? Well, you multiply both sides by 4. Use those parentheses. 4 times 8, that's 32, equals 4 on top and 4 on bottom cancel or divide to make 1. So what you're really just left with here is negative 1, because you still have this negative 1, and the r. But you can't leave it like that. So I want to make negative 1 times r positive, so I divide by negative 1 and I do it there. And I get negative 32 equals 1r, or negative 32 equals r. Check it. Okay, 8 equals negative 1 over 4r. 8 equals negative 1 times negative 32 for r over 4. That's 8 equals negative 1 times negative 32 is positive 32 over 4. Both sides of the equation balance out. 32 divided by 4 is 8. Last thing I want to look at, what if you get some bigger numbers? Well, things don't really change. Negative 1 over 11j equals negative 12. Okay, well, just think of this as multiply by 11, multiply by 11. 11 divided by 11 gives you 1, but you can just say, okay, what I'm left with is negative 1j. And then 12 divided by 11, or negative 12, multiplied by 11. 12 times 10 is 120. 12 times 1 is 12. So that's 132. And it's negative. Now, I want to know the value of positive 1j, so I'll divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, because this is multiply by negative 1, so I'll do the opposite, which is divide. And I'll get 1j equals positive 132, or j equals 132. The check. So we'll write down the original equation. Negative 1j over 11 equals negative 12. Replace the j with 132, so it's like negative 1 times 132 over 11 equals negative 12. Now, negative 1 times negative 132 is negative 132 over 11 equals negative 12. And that's negative 12 equals negative 12. A lot of stuff there. Okay, the last one. Number 8. 14 equals 1 over negative 15 multiplied by k. So I want to know the value of 1k. Well, I'm going to multiply this side by negative 15. It's like canceling. When I have one on top and one on the bottom, I just cancel. And I'm left with 1k, which is exactly what I want. Over here, I don't have a lot of space, but I'm going to multiply this by negative 15. Maybe I'll half and double here. Double of 15 is 30, so negative 30. Half of 14 is 7. 30 times 7 is 21, 210. So this is going to be negative 210. And that's the same as negative 210 equals k. And then, of course, the check. 14 equals 1 over negative 15 times k. That's 14 equals 1 times negative 210 over negative 15. That's 14 equals negative 210 over negative 15. And that's true. That means 14 equals 14. So, some big math going on there. So you have to be able to solve equations by multiplication, both when they are written as a fraction and when they are written as a division question. I hope that helps. That's all for now. Flexing Teacher Weber out.